I think what I have seen is a lot of courage, like Jacques talked about, these guys who will go out now wanting to speak, wanting to share their story because they want it to make a difference for somebody else. And it's really powerful to hear them. But to do the work, like they could go on all these calls, they could go into fires and, go on domestics and all of that. And that in and of itself is brave. But it's really brave to come and sit in our office. That takes a lot of courage, a lot of guts. There's a lot of things they'd rather be doing,
right?
And that's not one of them. That's not one of them, right?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Barbara Heffernan, and I'm a psychotherapist who specializes in helping people recover from anxiety and trauma. And I started this YouTube channel to help bring information to more people that recovery is truly possible. And today's story is very encouraging on that point. So if you support the work that I'm doing here, please subscribe to my channel, give this video a like, and comment below what you think about it. Last week, I published a video, an interview with firefighter Jacques Roy and his wife, Dawn Roy, who is a psychotherapist, about a very harrowing call that caused post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms in Jacques. And I will link that video here in case you haven't watched that. That's the first half of the story. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Dawn and Jacques about the stigma that prevents firefighters from getting the help that they need after a horrible call, and also what Dawn and Jacques have done to really transform the issue of stigma in Fairfield County. And then we are also going to talk about the type of trauma treatment that Jacques Roy underwent to get rid of his symptoms. And that is called, you'll hear him refer to EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it's a type of psychotherapy that's highly effective for post-traumatic stress disorder and trauma. Now let's go to the interview. Let's talk a little bit about the stigma of getting help for mental health, which is a pervasive problem in our society overall, and then is often much more difficult for men.
Definitely. There traditionally has been a stigma, and there still probably is, or there still is, but we've come a long way. I found EMDR to be so helpful for me. Really, it was astonishing how poorly I had felt and how poorly I had gone to talk therapy, and have it not work. To actually do EMDR and 3 1-hour sessions be completely changed. To me, it was amazing to me.
Wow.
Just knowing another guy from that incident that was struggling, I suggested to him that he try it, and he had the same result. Finally, another member asked him why, how he was doing better. He put him in touch with myself and Dawn, and we referred him. So we had 3 guys and 3, I don't want to call myself that, but 2 solid citizens, solid firemen, respected firemen. And we all had the same success. And that was kind of how we wanted to share this information with the rest of our department. Unfortunately, we had a bad day in Stamford, a year or 2 later, where some guys tried to access our EAP, and unfortunately it did not go well. And it was at that point that myself and these other 2 firemen decided that we wanted to educate our department. In that same period of time, maybe Dawn, you want to speak to how the Fairfield County team was formed? Because it was really a collaboration between the Fairfield County Trauma Response Team, is the new name, and these 3 members, these 3 firemen, that we put together a 90-minute presentation on trauma and self-care and EMDR. So we created this program, and we went to our training division, the chief of our department, and we said, listen, we think that this is needed. you know, it helped the three of us. Surely there's a couple, three other guys that could use it. And we gave the class, we had 270 guys. Again, we were expecting a couple, three guys to respond. And right away, we had like 15 guys reach out.
Wow.
And it was amazing. And we're like,
Wow.
wow, this is crazy. And the guys that went had good experiences.
Mm.
And it just kind of grew. From there, we had one of our members had a friend who was a fireman in Norwalk who was struggling with an issue, and we actually presented to the Norwalk Fire Department the same presentation, and it just kind of, we started hopping around to different municipalities, and it just grew.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really kind of cool because I don't know, it's a good thing, but every department we went, we saw the need.
Yeah.
Like every different department we went, more guys used it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because now, 8-9 years later, the team, Fairfield County team, they have numerous presenters from all different departments, from law enforcement.
So when Dawn and the other therapists go to make a presentation, they have someone to come in who is a policeman or fireman or
Always.
somebody who's gone through the
Yes.
EMDR process and
Yes.
and have that sort of
Yeah.
simpatico relationship, like,
Yeah.
I've been through it, I know what you guys deal with.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I
Yeah.
think that's a big piece because I can just speak for the fire service. So often we're told what's good for us. This came from the ground up,
Yeah.
and there's a lot more buy-in, and I think a lot of it has to do with the character of the guys that stepped up first. I don't want to say it's easier because there still is a stigma, but it's really a credit to those guys because the stigma was a lot worse
Yeah.
8 years ago.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And those two guys deserve a lot of credit.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the stigma, it's definitely lessened a lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the younger guys,
Mhm.
because we're trying to indoctrinate them right now.
Right.
Like we have a rookie academy starting in Stamford, and this is going to be this presentation is going to be part of their training to kind of get them a heads up. This is what you may experience. We never had that.
That's so awesome.
And most of the resistance, unfortunately, and I'm not speaking negatively, are the more senior guys, because that's not how they were brought up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was very much, and still is in some of, the public safety areas, all of those, law enforcement, the EMS world, and the fire service. The old school mentality is, suck it up. This is what you signed up for. This is the job, let's go drink,
Mhm.
right? And you're not tough if you can't handle it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that's where a lot of the stigma in the different areas has been.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that too, self-imposed, like a firefighter or a police officer said, well, this is what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
And because I do this job, I'm supposed to be able to handle everything.
Sure.
And I'm not supposed to get affected, but that's just ludicrous.
Yeah. I'm also guessing a lot of people who end up being firefighters or policemen are the ones who grew up in their families being the ones who could handle everything. So maybe not everybody,
Yeah.
but it probably is a personality trait, right, of people who come in and they want to do this kind of work. So that reinforces it as well.
And there's a lot of myths too, I think, that lead to the stigma. Like, for a big fear for law enforcement who come into mental health care is, you're going to take my weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Many firefighters and EMS carry weapons or have weapons as well. And shame on us in the mental health field too, because again, what I have learned in the last 8 years is we have not necessarily done a really good job at properly informing people in the first responder world about what it's like and what we can do and what we can't do. And you know, I also think for first responders, I don't know if it's so much of a stigma, but it's incredibly difficult when you're the helper to be the helpee and to sit. You know, they're used to going in, doing a job, fixing something, and it's really hard. Many of them, as you said, are male, not all.
Right.
And again, you know, many males have a hard time coming out for treatment anyway. And then you add, as you know, again, as you said, that layer on, and being able to be helped.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's what I have seen is a lot of courage. You know, like Jacques talked about, these guys who will go out now wanting to speak, wanting to share their story because they want it to make a difference for somebody else. And it's really powerful to hear them. But to do the work, like they could go on all these calls, they could go into fires and, you know, go on domestics and all of that. And that in and of itself is brave. But it's really brave to come and sit in our office. That takes a lot of courage, a lot of guts. There's a lot of things they'd rather be doing,
Right.
and that's not one of them. That's not one of them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The courage to be vulnerable.
100%.
So the courage to be vulnerable within a therapy, and then to go out and actually talk about it
Exactly.
with the rest of
It's-
the guys and
Yeah.
the wider world, and even on camera. I mean, there's that true courage to really be kind of open-hearted and vulnerable, and I'm not perfect, and yeah, it's great, it's awesome.
In our line of work, we have to make, you know, critical decisions, a lot of times with incomplete or wrong information. And the only way you can make clear, concise decisions is if you're not emotional about it. And you have to really put out all your emotions and think logically and problem solve. That's our job, problem solve.
Yep.
And someone who doesn't have their emotions in check or under control or what have you is not going to make the best decisions. So the stigma that getting help emotionally and getting yourself mentally right is ridiculous. You know, I'd rather have a guy who is stable on the emergency scene, you know, than a guy who pretends he's stable day to day and affected on the emergency scene. Does that make sense? I don't want somebody making critical decisions who is still haunted by something else that may be related to the current call.
Right.
I have a lot more
so you
confidence.
want it to be clear. You don't want somebody having a flashback. You don't want somebody making their decisions based on an emotional reaction to the last call, because this call is different and you have to be clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's turn to just what the treatment was like, because when you said you had 3 sessions and your PTSD symptoms were gone, that's like incredible.
And it was really 2 sessions. I went the 3rd time kind of just as a follow-up to make sure. It was amazing.
Okay. What was it like? What?
Well, I was pretty fortunate that, I'm not fortunate, I imagine this is what all clinicians do, is my clinician explained to me the process and how it worked. And it was striking in that a lot of what she told me kind of reiterated a lot of our way of thinking in the fire service. And she says, when you're threatened, or someone else is threatened, and what have you, sometimes, you know, you have to suppress your emotions and problem solve for survival.
Right.
She says, do you understand that? And I'm like, that's our job. That is 100% our job.
Yeah.
Again, as we were just talking about, when we arrive at an emergency scene, we have to hold our emotions in check and think clear and problem solve. and adjust. Like the whole time we have to hold things in check emotionally. And there's terms in the fire service that we use, and one is tunnel vision. Like if you get really emotional, you see one thing and you don't grasp the whole picture. You don't want to do that. It's bad. It's a bad thing. And just there's a number of them. And the example I would use when I speak to firemen is, what's the worst possible thing you can do if you get lost in a fire building? And everybody answers right away, panic. The worst thing you could do is panic. Right? We have limited air supply, you start breathing faster. Guys that are panicked, they lose track where they are in the room, where they are in the building. Like you have to calm down. All right, what floor am I on? We labeled the different sides of a building, A, B, C, D side. Especially if you're gonna get on, even if you're just gonna get on the radio and call for someone to come get you. You have to calm down. You have to speak clearly so they can understand your radio message, and you want to give them your location in the building. If you panic, you don't do any of that.
Right.
And you could, one, you're going to breathe through your air quickly.
Yeah.
You could go around in circles in the same room.
Right.
It's the worst thing you can do. So you absolutely have to keep your emotions down and you problem solve.
Right.
So she's explaining this to me. I said, I get it. Yeah, I get it. And she says, and what happens sometimes is when you do suppress those emotions so deeply that you never get to process it emotionally. And that's when you get pieces undigested, kind of hung up. The color pink for me.
Yeah.
You know, the visual, the movie that I kind of created.
Right.
Or whatever, guys, it's sounds or smells, or it's just pieces that were never processed. So I was like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, I'm buying in. I'm like, I like what you're selling.
Right.
And then so she explained it to me. So picture that's two sides of your brain, your logical and your emotive. And she explained to me the EMDR, either with the light bar or the buzzers in your hand, that all you're doing is stimulating the emotive part of your brain, which is suppressed so much. And you relive the incident, and it just allows you to process it emotionally, which you never had the chance to do. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. And the reason talk therapy didn't work is because you never hit on the emotive part.
Yeah, it's
You're
all
just
tear up. It's like, yeah.
It's like, I'm like, all right, I get it. And it worked. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Dawn can tell you, a lot of her clients have that same reaction. Like, what happened? What just happened?
Right.
It's amazing. So that was my experience. Nothing but positive. It was great.
Yeah. And I imagine some of the clients you work with do take a lot longer than that if the trauma that is the current day issue connects to something from childhood.
Right, yeah.
It becomes a more extended course of treatment, because I don't want everybody to feel like, oh, they go into treatment, it's going to be 2 sessions.
No.
But
Right. It's different for everybody.
it's a little bit different for everybody.
If
but,
it's, you know, as we say, single event, you know, I have had, you know, a fireman, paramedic that came in, and it was very specific to one event, and 2 or 3 or like 4 at the most, and yes, that was it.
Yeah.
You know, it was very specific to that event, and it was cleared.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, if they're, sometimes the thing they come in with might be about a call, but then absolutely there's stuff that may pop up from childhood as well. So the buy-in is there because it, you know, first responders want results. They're results-oriented population, and I think that's the huge benefit of EMDR is it does tend to work pretty fast, and so because they're starting to feel better quicker, they're in. You know, they'll buy in if there is other stuff to deal with.
Right.
And the great news is they have become so much better at knowing themselves when a future thing happens. So I definitely will have people that will say, you know what, I just had this bad thing, and before it gets nasty, I just want to come in, I want to clear it out. You know, they'll use phrases like clean the dishes or empty the bucket or stuff like
Clean up that wound.
Clean out the wound, yeah.
It's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, and so they really are good. I'll come in, can I come in for a tune-up?
Yeah. And I know also that in your presentation you talk about PTSD being the invisible wound. So it's a great way to talk about this, that this is, it's like any other, any other wound. We all can get hurt.
Right.
And this is a wound and you just need to take care of it.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking with the EMDR, it takes away the PTSD symptoms that are no longer needed. It doesn't make it not sad.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So the emotions that are congruent with what you lived through, what happened to that family, it's heartbreaking. It's sad. Every time I hear the story, I feel like I'm gonna cry. So it's sad, but it isn't impeding on your current day living. It's not impeding on your job. It's not intruding into your thoughts, and it's not all the unneeded, incongruent emotions that would go with that event.
Or thoughts.
Or thoughts.
Yeah. Like completely changing the thinking of, I failed in that, or I should have done this, or I could have done better, or that kind of thing too.
Right.
I really did do the best I could, and
Yeah. So I know that you recently were at a conference. You mentioned it was one of the first focused on mental health for firefighters.
Yes, it was in Denver, Colorado, a couple weeks ago. The
Behavioral health?
National Firefighter Behavioral Health Symposium, I believe was the title.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that behavioral health, which is like mental health treatment, is becoming important enough.
Oh well, going back to the stigma question, unheard of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That we would ever have a symposium about behavioral health.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Awesome. It's awesome. So if anybody watching was interested in either bringing information to their fire department or thinking about doing some kind of trauma recovery network or forum, what would be the resources for them?
Yeah, they could go to www.fctrt.org.
fctrt.org.
fctrt.org. fctrt.org, yes. And that would take them to where they need to go.
Okay.
To find an EMDR therapist in their area, emdria.org, right, would give them finding, but it's not only finding an EMDR therapist. They really want to try to find someone who may have experience in working with the first responder population.
Yeah,
and everybody has to have their first time once, right? I had to have my first time once. But there's definitely some clinicians that have had more experience than others.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if anybody watching wanted to reach out to you who was in the Fairfield area, where do they find you?
Yeah. They can email me at dawnmroy@lcsw@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll put that in the notes to the show as well.
Mm-hmm.
Myself and another gentleman, Ted Stanek, we're the leads on our peer support team in Stamford. If you contact the Stamford Fire Department, they'll forward it to Teddy or I.
Okay.
And we can help anybody looking for it.
And there's one other resource. Doug O'Rourke with Hamden Fire Department is the head of the Connecticut peer support team, firefighter peer support team.
Cool.
Because there are numerous peer support teams in different departments throughout Connecticut.
Okay. Do most states have that now, or just some growing?
It's not so much a peer state team; it's a state network.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. State network. Yeah.
Each department has their own team.
Right.
That has 2 representatives in the state network.
Right. Okay. Right.
And the theory is, if something huge happened in Stamford, our own peers would be overwhelmed, and we can call on resources from the state network
Okay.
and vice versa.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's great.
Right.
Yeah. So if you need peer support, but Stamford just lived through something horrible, you can
We can reach out to this
a
network.
different town. I truly hope that you found this video helpful, and I will link in the notes below this video the resources that we refer to, including contact information for Dawn and for Jacques and for the Fairfield County Trauma Response Team. And if you did find this helpful, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to the next time.